What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB, and more specifically, an episode of Let's Talk Dynasty. Now, today we got something a little bit different, a little bit fun for you. We're going to be doing a 2-round mock draft for a Superflex tight end premium type of league. Here's the catch: we can only draft players that are considered cornerstone players, those players being under the age of 25 years old. So that is the player pool that we can draft from today. As always, this is an episode of Let's Talk Dynasty, so we can't do this episode without my co-host. So without wasting any more time, let's hop right into today's video and let's start drafting these cornerstone players. War, how we doing today, man?
Doing good, man. It's bright and early here. Pretty tired, but I'm ready to get rocking and rolling and do this draft and show what these young guys' future may hold.
Yeah, man, it's not as early for me as it is for you, but I'm still pretty tired myself too. I woke up out of bed to do this, so the cat kept me up last night. She was screaming. I was too busy binging Netflix and stuff. I was up too damn long. But look, we're here for a cornerstone draft. Now, I put a sheet together. We're going to put graphics up on the screen so people can follow along very easily. We're not going to be drafting this in Sleeper, but we've already drafted it. So you had the 101. Picking from the cornerstone players, those players being under 25 years of age or younger, who did you end up going with the 101?
I went with Jayden Daniels primarily because I had to after the season he's had with the Washington Commanders. I think at this point it's undeniable, barring anything health related. I think that his star is ascending. I think that he has a very bright future. He's about to have his first game here in the playoffs in the next coming day, and then we'll be able to see if that star can burn even brighter. He gives you the passing upside. He gives you the rushing upside. And it's not even necessarily that his supporting cast is stellar. He has a okay supporting cast, but imagine if he had more than Terry McLaurin on the team to hold him down. So I think the future is nothing but bright for him as they continue to develop that roster around him and as he continues to stay healthy. So yeah, man, I had to go Jayden Daniels with my 101.
Yeah, I just am doing a video about the rookie quarterbacks this year and kind of recapping their season. At this point right now, Jayden Daniels, he's quarterback 3 over on Keep Trade Cut. The only quarterbacks above him are Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. It feels very much like the hype has gotten pretty crazy for Jayden Daniels, but he has averaged a ton of fantasy points per game this year. Like you said, he has both the rushing and the passing upside. I think that this is a kid who's going to be good for a long time. I have to ask, though, because I'm at the 102, and I ended up drafting Ja'Marr Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, he still kind of fits into this mold because he's 24 and some change. I think he doesn't turn 25 until March. So technically, if we did this, 2 or 3 more months down the road, he wouldn't be eligible for this draft pool. But did you have any consideration for Ja'Marr Chase? I feel like this is a player who has obviously just won the Triple Crown. He's a guy who everybody is really super excited about at the moment just because he's kind of gotten into that wide receiver 1 conversation again. I think he kind of always has been. You and I know we've always kind of said it's Justin Jefferson and Ja'Marr Chase that has always been 101 and 102 at the wide receiver position. But I think a lot of people this year probably have moved Ja'Marr Chase over Justin Jefferson. Did you have any consideration for him at the 101, or was it strictly just this is super flex settings, I need to go get my franchise quarterback?
Yeah, this is super flex settings. I had to go get my franchise quarterback. Ja'Marr Chase is probably my favorite wide receiver in the NFL. So obviously I kind of had to ignore his name even being there because I didn't want my opinion to be jaded. I went with who I would have taken had this been like an actual draft. And since it's super flex, yeah, I went Jayden on that one.
Fair enough. All right, so what did you do at 103?
Okay, so we're gonna raise some eyebrows here because you guys already know what I went for 103. I took Caleb Williams, baby. Took Caleb. Let me hold on now before y'all say, okay, here word goes again. He's a Bear fan. He's picking Caleb Williams. Let me tell you something. I don't care what you haters have to say about, his fingernails. First and foremost, any other year, if you put Caleb out there and he has these numbers, he has these moments. He had a better season than CJ Stroud. You put any of them numbers out there, then it's considered a successful rookie season. But since you have, and before we get to it, enough with this Drake Maye is better than Caleb Williams thing, because his
You
numbers
saw my
better
rant
than,
in the group chat yesterday about that.
yeah. His
Yeah.
numbers is better than his numbers is better than him too. But my whole point being that any other year, if you don't have Jayden Daniels, if you don't have the perfect system quarterback Bo Nix, if you don't have those two things present in this season, then people will be a little bit more bullish on Caleb Williams' season as a rookie quarterback in a dysfunctional Chicago Bears team. So that's what I'm taking. I still think that he is one of the three ultimate weapons in last year's draft. The only thing that's changed is that now there's probably 5 ultimate weapons from last year's draft. And we're talking about Jayden Daniels, BTJ, Marvin Harrison Jr., who's still generational. Caleb Williams is still generational. Brock Bowers is still generational. I could make the argument that all 5 of those guys are generational. No hate on Bo Nix. I just think that he's a perfect system quarterback. But yes, I'm taking Caleb at the 103.
Yeah, look, I think that there's definitely an argument that Caleb Williams, when you look at the quarterback pool of players that we can draft from, I mean, we're talking about names like CJ Stroud, Drake Maye, Bo Nix, like these, you kind of mentioned all of those guys. I think other guys on this list would have been like Michael Penix, Bryce Young, JJ McCarthy. Like Caleb Williams, to me, he's the guy that I do select over all of those players. And I know that, like you said, and kind of I've already talked about in our group chat, is it seems like the community has kind of already made the mental switch of now we want Drake Maye over Caleb Williams for whatever reason, even though the passing yardage, the touchdowns, the fantasy points per game, the everything basically that Drake Maye did as a rookie was less than Caleb Williams. The only thing that really you could say that Drake Maye didn't do was have crazy wild expectations that he didn't meet. And so people don't feel burned by Drake Maye that Caleb Williams burned people, because we were talking about him as quarterback 5, I think, coming into the year as a rookie. He was the top 5 quarterback in Dynasty, and he was also getting the Patrick Mahomes name tags. So there's a lot of stuff that I think maybe burned people just because of expectations. I think the play on the field has been fine enough. Obviously, there's mistakes and there's some things that Caleb Williams can clean up. And like you said, he's a rookie quarterback. I just hope that you guys end up getting an offensive play caller that ends up, getting him kind of the offensive play calling help that he needs to be successful at the NFL level. You have any predictions who you think that coach is going to be?
Todd Monken.
You think so?
Yeah, I've convinced myself now that Ben Johnson is probably going back to Detroit.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because I think when you look at the landscape, I think people talk about the Bears like they're the worst ran franchise in the NFL. And I think that's just because the Bears are easy to be like the butt of the jokes. In my opinion, the Jaguars are just as dysfunctional, if not worse. The Raiders are just as dysfunctional, if not worse. The Patriots, Mike Vrabel's going there. I don't care what anybody said. I really think those are the only 3 teams that have a legitimate shot at Ben Johnson. And I think when he looks at it, he's going to look at the Raiders and say, they don't have a quarterback. They don't have cap space. Their roster's a mess. He's going to look at the Jaguars and be like, oh, man, Trent Baalke is still there. And I think that, and he's going to look at the Bears, and I think the Bears are I just don't think his personality type is going to rub management the right way. Like, management with the Bears, they're scared of guys who put their foot down and stuff like that. Todd Monken just seems like he'll, play ball. And then once he gets in there, I don't think Todd Monken's a bad pick. So I'm not saying that as like, oh, typical Bears. I just don't think it's going to be Ben Johnson. But if it is Ben Johnson, great.
Yeah, I think there's, in my opinion, there's only 2 teams this coaching cycle that actually have a shot at Ben. And I think it's you guys in Jacksonville. I think Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence being quarterbacks, I feel like that's enticing enough. Plus, you have the weapons with Rome Odunze, DJ Moore. They have weapons with Bryant Thomas Jr., Evan Engram, like some other guys there. I think those are really the only 2 destinations that feel like they make the most sense for Ben Johnson. You see what Shad Khan said about Trent Baalke? He said, if the coach comes in and wants like a new GM or whatever, I'll listen to that conversation and maybe we'll fire Trent.
Yeah, see, but even that in itself is dysfunctional. You get what I'm saying?
That's crazy. It's crazy. And he said it when they were on a Zoom call together. Trent was sitting on the other side of that shit.
Yeah, that's dysfunctional. And I think the Bears and the Jags, I don't think you can compare the two franchises as far as like franchises. The
Yeah.
Bears are like as much of a butt of a joke as they are, they're the Bears, and the Jaguars are the Jaguars. So really, I mean, the Bears can offer Ben Johnson something the Jaguars could never offer him, and that's like the opportunity to like become a legend and write his meal ticket in the city of Chicago for the rest of
Yeah.
his life. They immortalize everything. They're retiring Derrick Rose's jersey. He played like 5 good seasons in Chicago, and they're
Yeah.
retiring his jersey next year. So I mean that's just how it goes in Chicago. And I think like the aura of Chicago is greater than Jacksonville. So
Well, look,
we'll see.
just don't promise to take the North and never give it back. Don't do
Yeah,
that shit, Ryan
that,
Poles.
that's aging like old milk.
Anyways, let's go on. We went on a tangent there about the Bears and the Jags and coaching and whatever. I'm going to
Yeah.
104. 104, I'm going to keep it simple, man. There's a lot of talented wide receivers on the board still, and this is probably going to ruffle some feathers because I think that there's a very popular name that people want me to pick. It's not the pick that I would make on my team. I'm taking Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua to me feels like one of the best wide receivers in football, and I'm not just talking about like in this player pool of guys 25 years or younger. I think there needs to be a conversation right now that with the way the Rams have built their roster, Matthew Stafford's still going to be there. I know people are saying he's probably only going to be there a few more years. I don't give a shit if it's 2 years, 1 year. For those 2 years that he's there, Puka Nacua is going to be elite. When he was healthy this year, he was in argument for one of the best top 3 wide receivers in football. It was Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Puka Nacua. Those were the guys that were performing for fantasy football teams. He's young. He's going to continue to keep getting better. I think he's going to be a superstar for years to come. In fantasy football PPR formats, he's a target monster. This is a guy who's getting 12, 13, 14, 15 targets sometimes some weeks. Look, he even played most of this year hurt, and he did what he did. This was a league winner by all means when he got back into the football field for you. Puka Nacua to me, I'm taking him at the 104. This is a guy that it's going to be damn near impossible for me to take outside of my top 5 dynasty wide receivers, period. It's going to be hard for me to keep him out of the top 5, period.
Yeah, man. Jury is in on Puka Nacua. He checked all the boxes for me this season. I said last off season when we talked about him and I got a bunch of shade, I said I need to see it one more time. God damn it, Puka Nacua did it one more time. So I don't got nothing to say. I didn't even flinch when you picked Puka Nacua right here. Didn't flinch one time. I would have taken him if you didn't take him. So I mean, yeah. So I'm right there with you on Puka Nacua.
If there was any other person in consideration, it's the guy you took here at 105. So who'd you take?
I took Malik Nabers. And it's funny you say that because the guy that you took at 106, also, if I would have sat and thought about it for one more second, I would have took him. But yeah, Malik Nabers is a dog, man. He's a dog in every sense of the word. Personality, performance. Guy cares about winning. Guy could go out there and back up his care about winning with his play on the field. And if he doesn't get to do that, then you will hear about it from him. He doesn't want no trash Shedeur Sanders. Like he's a dog, man. He says what he thinks, man. He don't hold back. And those are the type of players I like. And then the icing on the cake is just that he's just a complete stud wide receiver. I can't believe that the New York Giants somehow have done it again. They do everything else wrong, but somehow they find a way to find super alpha wide receivers. Hopefully his run is a lot better than Odell Beckham Jr.'s run, but like this guy's already 10 times better than Odell Beckham Jr. in my opinion.
Whoa.
Because I think a lot of Jr. is just like hype from the catch.
Mm-hmm.
like that's just, I think he's lived off of that for years and years and years. But yeah, man, Malik Nabers is that dude.
Yeah, I can't disagree. Like I said, if it wasn't Puka for me, it was Malik, and I was probably 50-50 coin flip between both of them. You could flip a coin 100 times, and whatever it landed, I'd be okay with either result. So I think those guys are absolutely elite. I'm going at 106 here. I'm going back to that rookie well. Tight end, yeah. Brock Bowers. You mentioned it earlier. Generational player in this draft. Truly, actually, a generational player. Was looking at the receiving yardage leaders in the NFL just the other day. Brock Bowers, as a rookie with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew and Desmond Ridder at times, ends up a top 7 receiver in football at the tight end position. This guy is actually dominant. He looks like, I think a lot of the comparisons that people are going to give is, well, Sam Laporta had a really good rookie season. Here's the difference, folks. This is the difference to me. Brock Bowers did all of his on receptions and receiving yards. Sam Laporta did all of his on touchdowns. Touchdowns are not a sticky stat. Year in and year out, they can change. The touchdowns have not fallen for Sam Laporta this year, and we're kind of seeing a step back to the mean. Brock Bowers hasn't scored a ton of touchdowns. He's getting it all with those PPR points that we want to see. That is sticky. I think next year he's going to be the number one guy at the position. I think he's going to be the number one guy at the position for a long time, as long as he wants to be. This guy is truly generational. In a tight end premium super flex draft like we're doing right now, you could argue Brock Bowers, like you said, probably goes even earlier, maybe as early as the 104. I think we could argue he goes over Puka and over Malik, but give me Brock Bowers here, the 106.
Yeah, man, Brock. What more can I say about Brock? I've been singing his praises the entire season. I have tons of shares of Brock Bowers across multiple leagues, and I'm so happy about that. For once, I did something right in Dynasty. Like, yeah, Brock Bowers, man, he's just amazing. And I do want to make one more omission that I forgot. 6 ultimate weapons. I don't know how I left Malik Nabers out of that when I was naming the ultimate weapons. He's a clear and obvious weapon, as is this guy, Brock Bowers, man. Brock Bowers is going to be the tight end one for the foreseeable future. He's quarterback proof. He's quarterback proof. We didn't even mention that. So, I mean, yeah, man, I can't even argue with you putting Brock right here. So my next pick, 107, and this might cause some controversy, but I don't think it will because you didn't take the other guy in the next couple picks either. I went with Jahmyr Gibbs. Now understand this. Coming out of the draft, I don't know about everybody else, I had Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson as 1A, 1B. A lot of people had Bijan as, the clear way number one. I like Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit, just as much or a little bit more than Bijan. I'm a contrarian. What can I say? Jahmyr Gibbs, man, he's an absolute monster. Like, I understand that Monty is going to come back. Monty is going to do his thing, but Monty's up there in years. And I think what Jahmyr Gibbs has proven during the time period where Monty has been out injured, he's proven that he could be that lead back. He could lead you to the promised land. And I think we all knew that, but the Lions used 2 very capable running backs. I think you can't go wrong with Jahmyr Gibbs here. He's a super, super, super special running back. And I'm not a draft a running back high kind of guy, but Jahmyr Gibbs, he's a different type of special, man. And that's why I went with him here.
Yeah, look, the talent is undeniable. Just like you, man, there's a YouTube short on the channel where at the NFL Combine I was talking about, I don't think you guys understand how good Jahmyr Gibbs is. Like, he is just as good as Bijan Robinson. And there's video proof. Go back, scroll and find that. Also, if you want to go to the NFL draft stream that we did, I remember when he got drafted, I said, I absolutely love this. I love this. And there was people on our draft stream that were like, bro, this is a bad pick. This is a mistake. This ain't right, blah, blah. I remember I love that shit. I think you hated it as well because Swift was currently on the roster.
Yeah.
But I've been a truther of Jahmyr Gibbs. I still love Bijan Robinson. We've talked about Bijan. And I think when you look at Keep Trade Cut right now, it looks like the community has made the switch as well. At the running back position, running back 1 right now is Jahmyr Gibbs. It's Bijan Robinson right after him. They're neck and neck, and it's those 2 in a tier of their own. When you go to RB3, there's really nobody behind them that's even close. It's just those 2. And I think we're probably going to see that change when a guy named Achane Genie comes into the NFL. But he's probably going to get hyped up there to the top 3 as well. But look, man, I don't disagree with the pick at all. I think he is a superstar, and I think he's going to be really good for a long time. And I don't really think that health should ever be a concern for him either. I know he's a running back, and I don't want to say that out loud and jinx it, but the fact that he's not getting, 30, 40 carries and touches a game like some of these other running backs. Christian McCaffrey was getting 30 touches or 35 touches a game because he was getting those receiving work, and then he was getting the running back work, and he was a full-blown bell cow. Jahmyr Gibbs is doing all of this splitting a backfield with David Montgomery, and he's still producing top 5 seasons at the running back position. So I think he's an actual superstar. I'm going to go to 108, and I thought about taking Bijan Robinson, but I felt like, okay, if I'm actually on the clock and I'm drafting for my team, am I going to take the running back in Bijan, or in Superflex am I going to go to the quarterback position? So I went with CJ Stroud of the Houston Texans. Look, I understand, man. He had a down year. It wasn't as good. I don't think that this is a bad player, though. I think this is a kid who maybe got a little bit lackadaisical in the offseason, running around doing podcasts with Micah Parsons and hanging out and Twitch streaming and shit. Like, I think that really good, successful rookie year maybe got the focus a little bit shifted for CJ Stroud. But I think a humbling year 2 might reshift that focus going into year 3. He's still talented as can be. The offense is going to be good with Nico Collins and Joe Mixon and some of these other guys there. Like, I think they'll probably end up re-signing Stephon Diggs, Deontay Johnson there. Who knows if he re-signs? Tank Dell, obviously, he's probably not going to play much of next year, but this is still a good team. This is a good quarterback, and in a super flex league, I'm going to take the shot on CJ Stroud over some of these running backs and some of these wide receivers, because building around that quarterback in super flex just is the way that I prefer to build my rosters.
Yeah, man. We'll see what happens with CJ, man. He absolutely can't survive another season like he had this season, because your second season, if this happens to you, we could look at, okay, he's running around, he's doing podcasts, he's doing Twitch streams. We could say that. But if you go out there and you do it in year 3, then we start to think it's a deeper problem. So
year 1 was the fluke.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's
because
do not hear what I'm not saying. Do not hear what I am not saying. But I remember somebody who had a really good year 1, mediocre year 2, mediocre year 3, and ended up getting left from the team by year 4. And his name was Mac Jones. He won Rookie of the Year. I'm not saying that CJ is Mac Jones, but we've seen this story before.
Yeah. Oh man. Whew, that sends a shiver up your spine, Mac Jones.
CJ Stroud is not Mac Jones. What I've seen from CJ Stroud is not Mac Jones, just to make that clear.
Yeah, man. I want to throw this out there too, man. And I've seen this floating around on X and everything. After week, like, I forgot what the stat is, but the last 8 weeks
after the conversation with Caleb?
No, not that. We already know that Caleb took care of business on that one. I'm talking about the other big glaring one. The last 8 weeks of the NFL season, Bryce Young is absolutely destroying CJ Stroud when it comes to stats. Like,
here you go. I have it actually.
Man, CJ Stroud was not the QB1 of that draft. It was Bryce Young. That one right there. That's what you just showed right there.
The last 10 full games in the NFL season, Bryce Young, more attempts, more total yards, more total touchdowns, actually 11 more total touchdowns than CJ Stroud, less interceptions, less sacks, more yards per attempt, and more fantasy points per game. Bryce Young.
Yep. And that right there is also why I want people to start pumping the brakes. And people think when I don't kiss Jayden Daniels' ass that it's like I'm hating on Jayden Daniels. I think that it's still too early. People live in this microwave society. I think it's still too early to just assume that the career arc of Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams is just going to be Jayden is a superstar and Caleb Williams is a bust, because there's different things that happen. The Bears do not provide an ecosystem for a quarterback to just come out guns blazing in their first season. I've been a fan of theirs for decades. That they just do not provide that system, and it's going to take guys longer than other guys. And it took Bryce Young getting sat down and back up, and now he's looking better than CJ Stroud. But I don't want to talk about Bryce too long because we did not draft him.
I do want to say, for those of you, I've heard some of the people in the comments and before say, man, Andrew really liked Bryce Young last year. The kid's starting to show a little bit of promise now. Showing a little promise now. Come on. It may not have been a total miss. Now, I did say he was QB1 in the class, but also, hey, he's outperforming CJ Stroud, who was QB1 going out of last year. So who knows, man? Who knows? The verdict is still open, in my opinion.
I agree.
All right, enough with the rant. 109. What are you doing?
Oh, man. Okay, so 109, I'm going to take another piece of the ultimate weapons. I'm going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. is still the wide receiver we thought he was. Famously said by a coach of the team that, rest in peace to the coach of the team that used to coach the team he's on now. Marvin Harrison Jr. is who we thought he was. He didn't have the season we thought. It's funny. He's very much like Caleb Williams, like the wide receiver version of Caleb Williams. They came in all this hype. Oh my God. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's going to be the best wide receiver prospect in decades. He's going to come in his first season. He's going to put up 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns, and all this stuff. And, he had a regular rookie season. Wait, hold on. Pause there. He didn't even have a regular rookie season. Do you people know that his numbers are eerily similar to his father's numbers in their rookie seasons?
I was just pulling those stats.
They're eerily similar in stats. So he didn't even have a bad season, just like Caleb didn't have a bad season. What it is that these out of control expectations led you guys to think that, okay, yeah, he's a league winner. I got him in this round of my draft, and he's a can't miss prospect. Well, guess what? He missed a little bit. He didn't hit the target right on the mark. Okay, I don't regret. I drafted Marvin in one of my leagues. I don't regret it. Why would I regret that? So, look, I remember. I'm old, man. I'm old. You see this? You see all this? You see all this? I'm old. Okay, I'm old. I remember when it used to take almost every stud wide receiver to year 3 to blow up. It used to take 3 years for a wide receiver to blow up. And now you got guys like Ja'Marr Chase, they come in year 1 and dominate. So some of these things take time, guys. So I'm still taking Marvin here over the next guy on our list, but the next guy on our list is a complete dog.
Yeah, I'm going to throw those numbers out. Marvin Harrison Sr. through his first 16 games as a rookie, 64 catches for 836 yards. Marvin Harrison Jr. through his first 16 games, 57 receptions for 822 yards. A couple catches off, like 10 yards off. They're damn near him and dad are the same as rookies. So, hey, if you think after year 1, Marvin Harrison, Hall of Famer, is a bust, pump the brakes a little bit for Marvin Harrison Jr. Look, going to my next pick, 110. You took Marvin Harrison Jr. I want Brian Thomas Jr. I want the other guy. I think this guy, when you look at rookie years, about as good as it gets, man. There's really nothing to say about Brian Thomas Jr. that is negative. He's playing with Mac Jones. He's playing with Trevor Lawrence. And to the fact that he's putting up 20, 30-point weeks in fantasy football playoffs with Mac Jones makes me excited that when Trevor Lawrence gets on the football field, this could be a totally different beast. I just think Brian Thomas Jr., man, again, a guy that probably, it does feel, in your terminology, microwave society, to just shove Brian Thomas Jr. very, very high into the dynasty ranks, but the play makes it very hard for you to argue against it. I think this is a guy who's going to be very good for a long time. A lot of people's wide receiver 4 or 5 coming into the class. I think at this point, you probably are moving him up. I mean, we moved him up above Odunze. We moved him up above some of these other guys. Like, this kid is good, and I have nothing negative to say about him. I think he's going to be a wide receiver 1, a true alpha. He's not just a deep threat, touchdown dependent option, which he was tagged as coming into the NFL because he was the big play touchdown guy opposite of Malik Nabers. No, LSU had 2 alphas in Brian Thomas and Malik. They both just got their own job now. So I love BTJ. He's here at the 110, man.
Yeah, man, I can't argue with that, man. He far and away exceeded my expectations. I thought he might be okay. I did not think he was going to do this in his first season. And yeah, he's a true wide receiver 1. How do you feel if you're Kayshon Boutte or freaking Terrace Marshall? You're like the only guys that failed from wide receiver that came out of LSU. Like, how do you feel? I mean, these guys are just popping out of LSU, coming to the league and taking over at that position. I would draft, honestly, if I was a franchise, I would draft the LSU wide receiver every season one's available. They just know how to develop receivers down there.
They got one this year, but I'm not a huge fan. Kyron Lacey, but BTJ this year, man, finishes the wide receiver 4 as a rookie, only behind Jahmyr, Justin Jefferson, and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
He's a dog, man. He's a dog.
All right, take us to his next pick here.
Speaking of dog, and you guys are probably surprised that he's this low, Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson is still a complete stud. He's still a complete stud. And what can you say about Bijan? He is who he is. Why do I think what'll be important is us to answer why he's this low on our rankings. The reason I have him this low partially is because he's a running back, which is like, well, you pick Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, I like Jahmyr Gibbs more than Bijan Robinson. I don't think, and I hope this isn't too controversial, I don't think that he's lived up to what we thought he was going to be just yet. Is there still a chance? Maybe, but usually running backs of his stature, of his ilk, you usually see it from day one. And I'm not saying that he's trash or like anything like that. I'm not saying that like at all. But what I am saying is that he's not Saquon Barkley. And that's what people were saying when he was coming out, that he was going to be like the next Saquon Barkley. He is a top echelon, top 2 running back in Dynasty. There's no refuting that. But I think there's other wide receivers, obviously quarterbacks, and Jahmyr Gibbs that I'm a little bit higher on than him. If you're giving me a choice between Bijan Robinson and, say, Brock Bowers, I'm taking Brock Bowers. He's a tight end. So, I mean, I think Bijan is amazing, but I think this is the right place for him on this draft.
I'm gonna defend Bijan just a little bit here, because really the reasoning for me as to why he's down here for draft capital, I guess, in this Cornerstone draft is because he is a running back. And when I'm building my rosters, I prioritize the positions that are easier to project year over year. They have longer shelf lives, those being quarterbacks and wide receivers. That, plain and simple. That's just what I like to build my roster around. That's why he got pushed down. But I think saying that Bijan Robinson has failed to miss or meet the expectations, and saying that he isn't the same type of guy as Saquon coming in, I think those are false narratives. And I think that's kind of the same thing as we're talking about with Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison. The expectations coming in, we were talking about Bijan as generational. He was getting the tag. That's what everybody did. We were saying he's the best thing since sliced bread, right? Yeah. Let me just tell you what Bijan Robinson has done in his 2 years in the NFL, bro. The running back 9 as a rookie. 9 overall. He was a top 10 running back as a rookie. This year, the running back 3 in PPR, a top 3 running back. Guess what Saquon did when he came into the league? He was a top 5 running back his first season, and he was a top 10 his second year. That's exactly what Bijan Robinson has done. He has the same start to his career, fantasy finish-wise, as Saquon Barkley. It may not be sexy, and it may not be, RB1 overall both years in a row that everybody wants him to do, but he has been a top 10 running back and a top 5 running back. Saquon was a top 10 and a top 5. That's just the way that this has went. He's also kind of splitting touches. He's been through a bad offensive play caller in Arthur Smith, and then got to a new offensive play caller. Bijan has done nothing but meet the expectation, in my opinion. I think if you are disappointed with Bijan Robinson up to this point, your expectation was out of reach. If you're upset with 2 top running back performances in his first 2 seasons, I don't know what else you thought you were getting. This man has been nothing but an RB1 ever since he got into the league. So I know it's easy to look at the finishes, and maybe people are a little bit more burnt at the inconsistency from game to game, because he had a couple games where he had 12 points, and then he had 23, and then he had 29, and then he had 20. Like, who gives a shit, bro? He's been a dominant running back since he's gotten to the league, and I think that he's not meeting my expectations, he's been a failure. I think that's false. I just think it's false.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I'm at with Bijan. I mean, okay, let's play the game. So obviously you're taking Jahmyr Gibbs number 1, right? So if you got Ashton Genty, right? Are you taking him over Bijan at this point? Or are you still rolling with the sure thing in Bijan?
I'm going with Bijan for now. I don't know landing spot. I don't know anything about Genty at the moment. I'd rather. Also, I don't think Genty gonna make people upset because everybody loves the new flavor in town or whatever it is, but I don't think that Genty is as talented as Bijan Robinson was at the college level. I know he did the Heisman year. Bijan Robinson's entire resume in college, I think, is more impressive than Genty's.
See, I feel like I crapped on Bijan. I feel like I crapped on Bijan.
You did a little bit. I
mean, but I wasn't trying to. I still acknowledge that he was he's running back 2. He's still the running back 2. It's just that I had higher expectations for Bijan. But maybe going back, let me look in the mirror now, because I just criticized people for their expectations of Caleb and Marvin Harrison Jr. Maybe I had too high of expectations for Bijan.
Probably. And for the record, I want it to be known, because it sounds like we're talking as if there's a gap between Jahmyr and Bijan. I do not see a gap between the two. To me, it is 1A, 1B at the Dynasty running back position. Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that one. I'm going to go to 112. We're finishing up the first round here. I'm going back to the quarterback and hey, I'm going Drake Maye, man. Drake Maye, we've talked about, him having a pretty decent rookie year. I think that there's some things that we like about Drake Maye. The fantasy points per game wasn't elite in year 1, but I did like the rushing upside that we saw out of Drake Maye. I think he's super talented. I liked him coming in to the NFL as a prospect. The only thing that I am slightly nervous about Drake Maye is the fact that, 1, already on Keep Trade Cut, he's valued as a top 10 quarterback in Dynasty Fantasy Football. He did not perform as a top 10 quarterback, so us putting him there is basically we are projecting growth, and we're almost trying to pencil it into his value at the moment. That's risky. We've seen that be risky before. The other thing is we need a a lot of change, I think, to happen for Drake Maye to take a significant step forward. We know that the weapons in New England are not great. He was throwing to Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas. These are the guys that he's throwing the football to. He needs to go get another wide receiver. Is that going to be Ted McMillan? Maybe. Is it going to be T. Higgins in free agency? Maybe, if the Bengals let him walk. The reality is there's not a great free agent class, and there's not a great wide receiver class at that position. So if they don't make the splash signing, we're looking at him getting some role players. I mean, maybe the best thing would be him getting a guy like Chris Godwin coming off the ACL tear if they're willing to pay Chris Godwin. But that's what I'm saying. Like, we're projecting a lot of change to happen, and then there's also going to be a new coach, a new scheme, some other stuff going into year 2. There's a couple minor yellow flags, I think, about the situation and Drake Maye's production versus his current valuation on KTC. So I like the kid. I'm very excited about him. I think the talent is through the roof. We need to see it all come together and produce into top tier fantasy football points, which we saw flashes of last year. That's why he's getting this first round pick from me in the Cornerstone draft. The fact that it's Superflex probably helps bump his draft capital up a little bit, but like the kid, I don't want to sound like I'm being negative about Drake Maye, but I just want to be clear that there are some things that still need to change, and we should be viewing him a little bit more realistically than we are in this, perfect world that people are viewing Drake Maye in at the moment.
Yeah, man, I'm super high on Drake Maye. I don't got too much more to add to what you're saying. I think all the talent is there, all the ability, all the physicality is there. There's a reason why people compare him to like a baby Josh Allen. I just have questions about the construction of the roster. How are they going to build that thing? Who are they going to get as his play caller? And I think that's going to determine a lot about the trajectory of Drake Maye.
Hey, they're interviewing Ben Johnson. If Ben Johnson gets his hands on Drake Maye, that could be beautiful.
We'll see.
We'll see. Take us to 201.
Speaking of Drake, I'm going to go with Drake in London. Here, Drake London made leaps and bounds in this season coming up. As first things were popping off pretty good with Kirk Cousins, and then Kirk Cousins kind of just seemed to peter out. But then once Michael Penix got in there, they just started clicking immediately. So that made me kind of raise Drake London in my mind even more about what he could be in the future. Drake London, he's definitely separated himself as like the alpha on that team. For some reason, there's a short period of time where Darnell Mooney was almost like being treated as the guy on that team. I don't know like what the hell that was about. But once things settled into like where it really needed to be, Drake London proved who he was. I think at this point, you could probably say that Drake London has surpassed Garrett Wilson. But Drake is a dog, man. So I mean, do I like that he seems to get nicked up every game? No, I hate that. It gives me real bad Chris Olave vibes. But Drake Maye. Not Drake Maye. See, man, that's what happens when you Drake to Drake back to back. But yeah, man, Drake London is that dude, man.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about it. I think he's super, super talented, and the situation seems good for them. Look, highly criticized taking Michael Penix when you drafted Kirk Cousins, but they ended up needing the other quarterback. Yep. So, hey, what can we say? And Drake London finished as the wide receiver 5 on the year in fantasy points. So, hey, he was right behind Bryant Thomas Jr. He had a great year. I'm going to move on to 202. I'm going to take another quarterback, and I'm going Bo Nix. Look, we talked a little bit about Bo Nix. Just feels like this is a kid who's exceeded the expectations that were set for him. Had a really good year, man. More rushing upside than I think people really realized coming into the NFL. I knew that was in his bag. I didn't think it would be relied on as heavily as it was. And this is a kid who also is performing with Sean Payton, and Sean Payton has a good offense around him. I think he's going to be a fine quarterback for years to come. Probably a little bit overvalued at the moment. He is valued higher than Caleb Williams on KTC. He's valued higher than some of these other guys, but I like Bo, man. And I think he's going to be the perfect, make me feel better about saying this here. I think he's going to be the perfect QB2 for your dynasty rosters for a long time.
I was just listening to you very intently there. You found a very skillful way to tap dance around giving Sean Payton a compliment because you hate Sean Payton.
Fuck Sean Payton, bro.
You hate Sean Payton. You just tiptoed and tap dance right around it. Look, to me, he is the perfect QB2 for your team because he's a great system quarterback in Sean Payton's system, which seems to be working for Bo Nix. Do I also think Sean Payton is an ass like you do because he pretended like Bo Nix was his choice all along? Yes. Yes, because
That's
I think
such bullshit, dude. For anybody who believes that shit of him saying that Bo Nix was his QB1 in the class, get the fuck out of here. That was not the option. That was the last choice on the board, and that's who he got.
yeah. And what sucks about it is that because Bo Nix is playing well, he could just keep playing that card. Like, see, I told you that's why I picked him. He was the number one quarterback on my board. And in a world where let's pretend like Bo Nix was the number one quarterback on this board. The only reason he would be the number one quarterback on this board is because he's been in college for 20 years and he could fit perfectly into Sean Payton's system. That would be the only reason. But we both know that's a lie. We both know that if Jayden Daniels was sitting there, he was taking Jayden. If Caleb was sitting there, he was taking Caleb. If J.J. McCarthy was sitting there, would he take J.J. McCarthy?
I think he would
Would he
have.
take Michael Penix over Bo Nix?
I don't know. I mean,
that's
my
the real
my
one.
pre-draft evaluation, I'm not Sean Payton, I'm not an NFL coach, but my pre-draft evaluation, I had Penix as the worst quarterback in the class. Not the worst quarterback in the class. Of the top 6, I had him below Bo.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just where I'm at. I think Bo Nix is the perfect QB2 for your team. If he is your QB1, you probably have a problem. He performs the way he performs. We'll see. He's in a tough division for years to come, and we'll see how it goes. Bo Nix, as good as he is this season, he also could be in a Mac Jones zone. So it could be in a Mac Jones zone where you're like, oh yeah, man, Bo Nix, and then next season, like, Bo Nix? Like, you're gonna not know. Let's say people they on TV they've been saying Bo knows. It's gonna switch to Bo don't know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Take us to 203.
203, man, I feel like this guy's star has fallen just a little bit. It's Garrett Wilson. Now, we know it is through no fault of Garrett Wilson that his star has seemed to fade a little bit. His stock has seemed to dampen just a little bit. It's strictly because we don't know who the hell his quarterback is going to be next season. We have no clue. Aaron Rodgers wasn't even that great, but, then Devontae is there. It's just a mess, man. I think a rumor came out at one point, Garrett Wilson, they were saying, oh yeah, Garrett Wilson wants to be traded. And then he came out like a denied it, but I think he should ask for a trade.
I think you should, bro.
Yeah, because it could be some real dark days ahead for Garrett Wilson. I drafted him right here just strictly on talent alone, like, because I have no backing as far as the team he's on, the quarterback he's got. Like, I have nothing positive to even think about what's going on there with the New York Jets. Like, the owner's son is playing Madden and having guys drafted and released based on their Madden rating. It's a shit show over there.
I agree, man. Would it surprise you if I told you he finished as the QB 10 this year? I mean, the wide receiver 10, not the QB.
I mean, I think that would be a blessing because he did that in spite of what was going on.
Yeah, he was a top 10 wide receiver this year, bro. So, like, it's just, I don't know, man. It feels like he's maybe, are we cooling maybe a little too far on Garrett Wilson? Maybe a little bit.
I think there's a scenario where he could be a buy low candidate at this point.
Potentially. I don't mind it. I also the pick. He probably is the next guy that I probably would have took. I didn't want to make that pick because there was something about drafting Garrett Wilson that I didn't want to do for whatever reason. And so here I am talking about him being a buy low, or maybe we're fading too far. I just saw the guys that got drafted after him and they felt more exciting. I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong way to go about it. But at 204. I go Jaxon Smith-Njigba. We're talking about a guy who played at Ohio State with Garrett Wilson. This year, JSN finishes as the wide receiver 9. We've seen that change, that offensive change there in Seattle. And I know they just fired their offensive coordinator in Ryan Grubb, but it feels like JSN has surpassed DK Metcalf. Now, we've said that we felt like that could happen.
Yeah.
Our timeline was wrong. The actual thing of that happening, we were right about it. The timeline was wrong because we said he would pass Tyler Lockett in year 1, and then going into year 2, he would pass DK Metcalf. Now he didn't pass Tyler Lockett in year 1, and he didn't really pass DK Metcalf until about week 7, 8-ish of this year, and then he took over. But our timeline was wrong, close enough. I don't want to give us the pat on the back, but JSN looks like what we thought he would be. and he looks damn good. A PPR monster, somebody who's going to win from the slot. And in this offense, he's going to be utilized that way. Honestly, I would not be surprised if in the offseason, I'm just going to call my shot right now. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw rumblings of potential DK Metcalf trade rumors. There might be that happening, I think, this offseason, because they're going to be looking for a new quarterback potentially here soon. They're going to be trying to flip the script here in Seattle, and I think that they may just operate with Jaxon Smith as wide receiver 1. And DK might be expendable down the road for them. DK's still a fantastic player. I don't want to get that twisted. But JSN, to me, he's the wide receiver 1 in Seattle. He looks damn good. And in fantasy football, he was scoring a lot of fantasy football points for you down the stretch. A top 10 guy, like I said, and he looks damn good. So I feel comfortable with him going into next year and getting him here at the 204. That feels like pretty good value.
Yeah, man. I challenge. I'm gonna sound like I actually talked to him, but I didn't. I challenged JSN this past off season. I told him that this season here was the put up or shut up year, and that if he doesn't do it this year, then we're gonna start to question like his future. As a potential wide receiver 1, and JSN only went out there and finished as wide receiver 9, a complete dog. I knew he had it in him, and he went out there, he did the damn thing. Yeah, man, JSN, I'm pissed off that I traded him away, but sometimes shit happens.
I did it too. It's fine.
Shit happens.
Hey, we need to look at ourselves in the mirror. You said don't be reactive. We only gave him like a year and a half. You should have gave him 2. I'm really starting to think at this point, like if you draft rookies, you almost want to just see what they do for 2 years. Like at this point,
I hate to do this comparison because you're gonna have some in-depth stat for why happened. And it's a damn shame he wasn't even on this list, and he's definitely on the 25. QJ, yeah. Okay. I was ready to release his ass.
Well, first and foremost, please, there's a reason why he ain't on this list. Nobody's taking QJ in the top 24 dynasty assets under 25 years old. Let's relax.
That's true. But QJ went from complete garbage to just like, okay, let me see what he got left. And I think that fits into you give them 2 years. I thought QJ was in the league 3 years for some reason. But
that first year was double time. That shit fucking hurt.
Yeah. Like, yeah, man. But now he's in wait and see mode. But yeah, man, like you said with JSN, sometimes you just got to give these guys a little bit more time. Yeah. But who didn't waste any time is the next guy on this list.
Talk to me.
Lad McConkey.
Talk to me.
Man, I did not see, speaking of QJ, I did not see Lad McConkey coming. I did not see him coming. I thought, he was going to be a little bit of something. I thought he was going to be like a consistent Alec Pierce, like, or something like that. But Lad McConkey is like fucking, and I'm not making the comparisons, but he's like, who would you compare Lad McConkey to?
What did I tell you this offseason? I said people are going to say Cooper Kupp because he's white, but it's actually true.
Yeah, you did say that. And that's where I wanted to go, but I wanted you to go there.
Yeah, because I'm the white guy.
Yeah, I wanted you to go there. Yeah, man, Lad McConkey, man, he's oh my God. I think he caught a lot of people by surprise because people thought he could be Cooper Kupp. They think he was going to actually go out there and be playing like he Cooper Kupp. Like at this point, like, do you want Lad McConkey or do you want Cooper Kupp?
Lad McConkey.
Exactly. So I mean, he got a bright future, man. I think it also helps that I think we could say now at this point that Josh. I think we could say that Justin Herbert has overcome the Jim Harbaugh worries. Could that have something to do with the fact that all their running backs got hurt? Maybe. I think
they're fine.
Yeah, I think Justin Herbert is just good, and if Justin Herbert is good, that's good for Lad McConkey. What I hope is that they don't do something stupid, like, and I don't think they'll do this because I don't think he'll do it. Like bring Keenan Allen back. I don't think that's gonna happen. Keenan Allen, he's been talking about he's either playing in Chicago or LA next season. So I'm like, which LA team is going to take you? Because I don't think the Rams need you. I don't think the Chargers need you, and the Bears, we're not paying you. So,
You might need to open those options.
yeah, or it might need to retire one or the other.
Change that LinkedIn profile frame to open to work. It doesn't matter where, just open to work, bro.
Exactly.
Look,
But
so
yeah, man, Lad is a dog.
I love Lad, and I love Lad in the pre-draft process, and I talked a lot about Lad McConkey this offseason. Some of my favorite memes right now are the Lad McConkey. They talk about like his route running, and it's some kid hitting an Irish jig. Actually insane. It's one of the funniest things I've seen. Also, I've heard that Lad is potentially a shortened form of Ladarius McConkey. That's actually his name. That's the way he plays football, is like he's Ladarius McConkey. So that's what I've heard. I just think this kid is fucking great. So I don't have anything to say about it. I'm gonna go to 206. Let that joke sit there and sit. But 206, I'm going Devon Achane. Look, it's been a while since we talked about a running back. I'm going to go for the guy in Miami. Still fantasy football monster. You had the worries this year, obviously, once Tua was not on the field. It just didn't, feel the same. But I think, obviously, Tua's still their long-term plan for franchise quarterback. Whether they like it or not, they're going to have to keep relying on him and that head of his. But Devon Achane, 17.6 fantasy points per game, finished as the running back 5. I think he's still a solid player. I think he's a good player. He's young. There's not too much that I can really knock about Devon Achane. And at this point, I'm taking talent over some of these other positions. You could dip down into wide receivers or go to another quarterback because there's still a few of those on the board. I think Achane scores more fantasy points than most of those guys. So just give me Achane.
Yeah, man, I'm not going to argue with you too much here. Achane is super talented. My concern with him is and will always be his diminutive size, his diminutive stature. That will always be my concern. But as long as he's putting up fantasy points, as long as he has Mike McDaniels, which I don't know how much longer he's going to have Mike McDaniels, he's going to be good. I guess as long as he had two, he's good. If you rolling out there, what's that dude named Snoop
Huntley,
Snoop Dogg, Snoopy. You run out there with any of them Snoops, man, then Achane ain't gonna put up no numbers. But yeah, man, I mess with Achane.
He scores fantasy points. I think he's a risky pick, but here at 206, why not? Take us to 207. You're actually sticking with running backs, so
I am sticking with running backs. I'm sticking with the Winter Soldier, Bucky Irving. He rolled down into Tampa Bay, and he told Rashee Rice he's the captain now. You know what I'm saying? If you have Bucky Irving on your team, and this really pisses me off, if you have Bucky Irving on your team, then you quite possibly have a league winner in your back pocket.
Why does that piss you off, by the way?
Don't be an idiot and trade Bucky Irving for Bijan Robinson. Don't do that. Don't do that. Even if he's in a timeshare, don't do that. Bucky is low on his list, but I think Bucky has the potential. I don't know if he had the potential to move that much higher because he's a running back, but in a room full of running backs, Bucky Irving arrow is pointing up. Like a month ago, you wouldn't have said that he's above the guy that's next on his list, but his arrow's pointing up, and I think we can go into next season, and Bucky Irving could be like, a top 5? I don't know. That might be too ambitious.
He might be. I don't think it could be crazy to have him be a top 5. The reality is that he's going to have to follow the Kyren Williams path, which I think he can. We obviously saw Kyren Williams come in, be good, and then there was worries going into year 2, remember? Or I guess year 3 for Kyren Williams. It was worries about, okay, how for real is that? And is Kyren Williams going to be able to, keep up that workload? And he's a late round pick, and are they going to add competition and yada, yada, yada? I think Bucky's going to get a lot of those same narratives. I think he exceeded my expectations. I wasn't in love with him in the pre-draft process. I think he came in and proved me wrong. I don't got too much to say about him, man. I think the kid's good, and at 207, I don't really have too much of an argument. However, I would have still taken the guy that I chose right here over him, and that's Breece Hall. So I would still have Breece Hall over Bucky Irving in my rankings. I know his year was a little bit disappointing for some people. He finished as a running back 16, which obviously was not what you drafted him to do, because he was drafted as like a top 3 running back, a top 4 running back, and he was in the conversations with like Bijan Robinson and Christian McCaffrey as those top guys this year. So I think people are a little bit down on Breece Hall. I think he's fine, man. He feels very much like he's still going to continue to be a bell cow. I know that people like, Braylon Allen and people like Isaiah Davis, but
Yeah.
At the end of the day, those guys are not getting on the football field with Breece Hall being healthy. Those guys barely got on the football field when he was banged up. I know there was a time where Breece was banged up and it was like Braylon and Davis split it 50-50. So I think, look, man, Breece, he's still a stud. To me, down year, it happens. Maybe he's not the elite running back that we thought he would be. Maybe he's not in the Gibbs and Bijan tier that we thought maybe he was, but who knows? It also could just be a down year, like I said. I think the issue is really, like you said, with the Jets, some question marks about the offense going forward. Who's going to be the quarterback? Who's going to be, there long term? That offensive line isn't fantastic. They're going to be needing a new play caller probably too. I can't expect Ulbrich ends up getting the head coaching job long term. I don't really feel like he will. There's a lot of change happening in New York, but Breece Hall, I think he's going to end up being a guy that we still like long term.
Yeah, we'll see. I have to see what's going on with New York before I feel high on Breece Hall. For high on Breece Hall. It's gonna take a little bit for me to come around to that, because I just think the Jets organization is in shambles right now. They might hire a defensive coach, which doesn't really affect Breece Hall too much, but I don't trust anything going on over there in New York right now. So we'll see.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I'm going back to the Chicago Bear for our next guy on the list. We're at number 209. I'm going with Rome Odunze. I'm going to be real quick here, straight to the point. Rome Odunze. I believe he's super talented. I'm still high on his talent. I believe you're still high on his talent. But me, as a Bears fan, watching Rome Odunze pretty closely, Rome Odunze has three issues as a Chicago Bear. One, their offense in general is in shambles because the offensive coordinator isn't calling the plays correctly, and the quarterback isn't able to do his job, thus that has a direct impact on Rome Odunze. Secondly, Rome Odunze needs to get on the jug machine. As a Bears fan who watched the season very closely, there was many and plenty of times where Rome had the ball hit him right in the hands and he wouldn't come down with the catch. He would this occurred multiple times in the end zone. We could be talking about Rome a lot differently if he didn't drop so many passes in the end zone. And we could even been talking about Caleb a little bit differently if he caught some of those passes. He needs to get on the jug machine. I don't know what the hell that was about, but yeah, maybe they need to find a way to deliver the ball to him easier. But once again, that goes back to the offensive play calling. And the third problem, the most glaring problem, probably is the presence of Keenan Allen. Down the stretch, Keenan Allen was getting way too many opportunities because he was Caleb's security blanket. Things that should have been going to Rome Odunze was going to Keenan Allen. And I think it might be addition by subtraction. And I love what Keenan Allen did for the most part for the Bears this past season. It's just that if Caleb can't get it to where Keenan Allen is the clear third option, and I should argue like 3A and 3B, because really Cole Kmet should be getting in there too. But what has to happen absolutely is that Rome needs to be the clear and away number 2 option. And he needs to be fighting to become the number 1 option, not settling in as the third option. So, that's just where I'm at with Rome Odunze. I still think the talent is there. They just need to clean up the offensive play calling and get some of the roster construction under control.
Going back to the patience conversation, there was a clip earlier in the year that we had where I talked about the situation of Rome Odunze going to Chicago, and I said that I felt like it was eerily familiar and similar to JSN going and playing with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Now, if you would have waited and you would have been patient with JSN, it would have obviously reaped its rewards by the end of year 2. Let's give that grace to Rome Odunze, because I think that it's a similar situation, and funny enough, it was the same damn offensive play caller actually with Jackson and Rome. And look, I think this is a super talented kid. Obviously, I had him very high in my pre-draft rankings. I had him over Bryant Thomas Jr., right behind Malik Nabers and Marvin Harrison Jr. So I still believe I think he's going to be a really solid NFL wide receiver for a very long time. I think Keenan Allen's presence was probably good from a leadership standpoint because, let's just be honest, DJ Moore has no interest in being a leader and has no interest in being a mentor to anybody on that roster, it feels like. And maybe that's just being harsh on DJ Moore, but he feels like he's just, I don't know. Everything that I feel like I've seen feels like he's been very selfish this last year.
Yeah, he does an interview for the Bears on the Chicago sports station every week. And I think it's not so much selfishness, even though he did show flashes of that this year. I just don't think he's the personality. Like every time he asks the question, it's always like, yeah, yeah. Like he's not like Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is like, he's a dog. He's out there.
Yeah.
That's not DJ Moore. He's kind of just like, he's real nonchalant. And I don't think like that's like good like
from
in
a
terms of
leadership
like
standpoint.
Mentor type. Yeah, mentor type player.
I feel you. Anyways, I think Keenan was good, but I think it would really benefit Rome if Chicago does let him walk. So, also, once your offense starts targeting downfield, throwing the ball downfield where Rome can eat deep, I think that'll help a lot too, because that's where he does a lot of his damage, I think. I'm going to go to 210. I'm going to stick to the wide receiver position. I'm going Rashee Rice for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think this guy's been kind of forgotten about just because of the injury. This is a guy who, remember, started the year on fire. We were talking about Rashee Rice as potentially the best pick in fantasy football because of, the points per game that he was having and the impact he was having in the Kansas City Chiefs offense. There's still going to be some question marks. I think, him recovering from the injury, potentially still some legal aftermath of the stuff that happened last offseason, maybe surfacing again going into next year. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not here to give the legal advice there, but the talent of Rashee Rice is too damn good to pass up at this point. I think he's the long-term number one wide receiver in Kansas City. And remember, D-Hop was signed to fill the role of Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice is the guy there. And we've seen a little bit of a tiny decline in Travis Kelce. I think we'll see that over the next year or so with Kelce still. So Rashee, a stud with Patrick Mahomes for a long time. Let me get him at the 210.
Yep, can't argue with that. I'm high on Rashee Rice. He's a good buy low candidate for the people that forget about him going into next season. Please target him. I already acquired him for the player that I'm drafting next in this draft, which now, after seeing it, I don't know. I felt like at the time, I felt like I finessed the person I traded when I traded this player for Rashee Rice. But now I don't know. Now it feels a little more equal. And I'm talking about Andrew's boy, Jordan Addison. And you stuffed something on here. I'm gonna get to that in a second. You had a little
I'm gonna go to I want to go to honorable mentions afterwards because I did switch it.
Yeah, I'm going Jordan Addison. They just strapped the rocket to his back. As the season went on this year, he dominated in a lot of aspects. Definitely dominated the Bears. I've seen it myself. He was very dominant. That offense, that Kevin O'Connell offense, can support two stud wide receivers. The Vikings seem to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So for two wide receivers, that's something that they're really good at.
Done it for as long as I can remember, bro.
Yeah. And okay, I'm looking at my battery life. And Addison is a complete dog, man. He is dominant next to a legend in Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson's presence helps him. And you know what? I'm going to let you finish this off with Jordan Addison because you're a Vikings fan.
Yeah, I just think the kid's good, man. It's really good to see him kind of take that next step in year two. You saw flashes of it in year one. I think there's obviously been some concerns about Jordan Addison. We saw some dips in his ADP and his overall value because of some of the offseason stuff, the driving incident, the driving while impaired that he had in LA. There was a couple of these off the field issues, and I think it's immaturity. But everything that I've heard from that moment is that he kind of went and addressed the team in the locker room, and he had conversations with Kevin O'Connell, and he kind of just said, like, I want to change. That's kind of an eye-opening a moment for him. I think there's still going to be growing pains with Jordan Addison because he does kind of have that, hey, you call it a dog mentality. He has that dog mentality. I think he wants to be the alpha number one. And that's good. But yeah, I think he's a stud. And he's really stepped up in TJ Hawkinson's recovery from the ACL tear because TJ hasn't been 100% this year. And Jordan Addison stepped up in light of that. So yeah, I like Jordan Addison a lot. I'm going to go 212. I'm going to take wide receiver. I'm going Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers, he's, same draft class as Jordan Addison, probably just as good over the last couple of years. The only difference is that maybe Baltimore's pass offense is not as friendly as Minnesota's pass offense, but Zay Flowers is truly the number one wide receiver there. We saw this year, I said coming into the year, I wanted to see him get established as the true number one in spite of Mark Andrews being there, and he kind of has. And so you've had these games where it does dip off and it gets inconsistent where he kind of disappears. And we've seen that happen, but I think that's more so because the Ravens offense sometimes just does better by throwing to the tight end and running the damn football. And it does make Zay disappear a little bit. All in all, though, I feel like this is a guy that I'm more than comfortable with long-term as the wide receiver 2 on my Dynasty fantasy football teams. I don't think he's a top 10 guy, a top 12 guy where you're going to be comfortable throwing him in your wide receiver 1 slot every week and knowing that you can get 20, 25 points. I don't think that that's Zay Flowers, but being a wide receiver 2, a high-end wide receiver 2, I think that's what he is. So I really like him, and I think he's a very solid player, and I probably have some honorable mentions, but I'll let you talk about Zay before we get into there.
Yeah, man, I think Zay is a ascending player. I think he still has a ways to go right now. I feel like he's locked into like that wide receiver 2 territory. And we'll see if like he could keep developing and the offense could develop around Lamar Jackson. We'll see, because they might lose the offensive coordinator. We'll see. And we'll see how that affects Zay, but Zay definitely has the talent, and I think that he is worthy of being a part of this draft.
Fair enough. All right, so say we had 2-3 more picks for each of us. What would be the next 2 or 3 guys that would be on your honorable mentions list?
Oh man, let's see. I don't want to say QJ just because I talked about him earlier. Let me see who will be on my honorable mentions list without me knowing exactly like their age. I will put Bryce Young.
You don't have the sheet in front of you?
I do. I'm trying to remember it by heart. I think I'll have Bryce Young there. I think I will have Sam Laporta there, and I think I will have. Now I'm going to use the sheet because I want the third person.
All right, so it looks like we might have lost War. He did say that his battery life was dying, so I guess good thing that we got done with the draft. You're going to have to wait for that third honorable mention. He said Sam Laporta and he said Bryce Young. For me, look, honorable mentions are going to be J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, and probably Chris Olave. Those would be my top 3 honorable mentions, but I want to thank you guys for watching this episode. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We just passed 4,000. We're going to be going towards 5,000 now, which is going to be a huge milestone for us, so make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed today's episode, if you enjoyed the conversation. If you have any thoughts in the comments, let us know down below. Also, last but not least, make sure you go join our free Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description, helping you guys with your Dynasty fantasy football teams 24/7, 365. So make sure you go join that. Like I said, free to join, so there's no risk in doing that. With all that out of the way, we have nothing else for you today. I guess we'll see if War gets his computer charged. That said, see you next time. Peace out.